Chapter 221 Slaughtering the Dark Beasts. Rumble. The fierce crackle of lightning erupted within the factory, the ear-piercing sound causing people to subconsciously cover their ears. Zhang Lulu was still hiding outside. Her complexion turned white as she saw the flickering lightning inside of the factory. The lightning illuminated the area while miserable shrieks could be heard from within the factory. There were a few strange and disgusting shadows that could be seen in the glare of the lightning, and the numbers seemed to be quite high. Jouting. Zhang Lulu was not sure what to do. Biting her lip, Zhang Lulu charged toward the factory. She couldn't just let Xu Jiaoting deal with these strange people and dreadful creatures alone. Zhang Lulu ran to the entrance of the factory, and saw 4 people whose limbs looked like they had been cruelly twisted as they slowly crawled along. Their faces looked like ghastly monkeys and their skin color was completely black. As she looked inside of the factory, she saw a man wearing a gray cloak staring at Xu Jiaoting with cold eyes. He stomped on Xu Jiaoting's face, now covered with blood, as he swore furiously, "Scoundrel, you dare to ruin our plans. Our great deacon told us to bring the person away immediately so we won't be exposed," Wei Si said urgently. "I'll take this kid away. You guys can kill the girl. Quickly tidy up the area, and don't leave behind any traces." Wei Yi said. Originally, they only wanted to surround the objective in this place. In the end, they encountered an irrelevant kid that had completely ruined their ambush. After calculating the time, the real objective would most likely get here soon. They couldn't let the objective know that they were making a move on him. Wei Yi whistled and ordered the dark beasts to drag away the wounded Xu Jiaoting. The rest of the 4 people were focused on Zhang Lulu, who had charged in to her own death. The 4 people might not be the scariest ones, but the most dreadful ones were precisely the dark beasts. Zhang Lulu never imagined that there'd be so many demonic creatures within this factory, and immediately regretted charging in impatiently. Goo 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 goo. The dark beasts looked like hungry wolves seeing fresh meat. They fought with one another as they charged toward Zhang Lulu. Zhang Lulu hurriedly took control of her water stars and turned the surrounding droplets into a water barrier. The water barrier helped defend against some of the fatal attacks, but was unable to completely block the claws of the group of dark beasts. The water barrier was quickly broken through, and their claws began to streak past her chest. A long line of blood emerged, and splashed the 2 rusty windows to the side. "Do you want to take this girl away to have some fun?" Wei San saw Zhang Lulu letting out a miserable cry, and his eyes flashed with lust. "We could be considered to have failed this time. If we were to delay the matter even longer, then we would get punished by the deacon," Wei said coldly. When Wei San thought of the person wearing half a mask, the things he had in mind were immediately gone. "It's better to kill this girl as soon as possible. Let's deal with the crime scene first. Save me." A wound appeared on Zhang Lulu's thighs, so deep you could see the bones. She risked her all just to crawl outside. She had always been nurtured within a school. She had never encountered people this cruel before. They didn't even have the slightest bit of humanity. With just a single command, they began to tear her to pieces. Even though Zhang Lulu was an intermediate magician, she was still unable to cast her magic while she was being attacked by dark beasts from all directions. She did not have any good defensive equipment. If she had a good defensive item, or the intermediate level violent wave, then it could potentially have saved her life. Unfortunately, she was currently unable to complete that complex water star atlas. The blood wound was very long. A group of dark beasts were surrounding Zhang Lulu. They seemed to enjoy the process of slowly tormenting a living person to death. "Hurry up and kill her. If you waste any more time, then I'll take each one of you and feed you to the great demon." Wei commanded the dark beasts angrily. The dark beasts were scared to death. At last, they finally stopped tormenting and moved to end this pitiful life. Oh! Suddenly, in the middle of the night, the howl of a wolf was heard. While the sound was still reverberating, a swirl of dust began to form from afar. The dust was rolling wildly as it began to engulf the place. Flying sandstones. The fine sands were like bullets as they pierced into the body of the black beasts. The rest of the cowardly dark beasts began to jump to the sides in an attempt to dodge the flying sandstones. Within the murk, you could see a sturdy figure using a frightening burst of speed to charge over. It was at least 3 or 4 times bigger than a dark beast. The huge wolf bit into a dark beast that tried to flee from the flying sandstones. Gah! As the wolf bit into it, the sound of broken bones was heard, followed by a painful noise made by the dark beast as it was directly bit in two. The upper body of the dark beast fell down. It had yet to die, and even began to use its claws to continuously dig at the floor in an attempt to crawl away from this dreadful creature. The spirit wolf raised a paw, and stomped on the head of the dark beast's head like a watermelon. Brains and goo splattered around the floor. A dark beast that hadn't escaped in time died instantly. Just a moment ago, it was taking joy in tormenting living beings. This time, it suffered from the process of itself being mercilessly slaughtered. On the floor, the Zhang Lulu raised her pale face as her blood pumped out. She looked up at this impressive blue creature with the physique of a wolf. This creature was standing right next to her. It was clear that it was trying to protect her. When she saw that there was a very familiar man sitting on top of the wolf-shaped creature, her tears began to mix with her blood as they ran down her cheeks. She knew this person. This was precisely the Mo Fan that Xu Jiaoting mentioned all the time. He was also the great demon talked about within the school. You should run. There are still many more inside, Zhang Lulu managed to gasp as she cried bitterly. Really? Mo Fan stared at the dark beasts as well as the four gray-cloaked men. I will kill as many as there are. Mo Fan jumped down from the back of the spirit wolf and carried Zhang Lulu off to the side. Owu, the spirit wolf was already unable to hold back his killing intent, and took the initiative to charge toward the four dark beasts. A tackle, a smack, and the two dark beasts with smaller statures were directly sent flying. They smashed into the iron door of the factory with a loud metallic sound. The other two dark beasts took the opportunity during its attack to bite the spirit wolf. They ripped out a bit of its skin along with the fur on its body. The spirit wolf didn't care about the little wound. It turned around and bit into one of the dark beast's arms, and easily threw the dark beast into the air. The spirit wolf waited for the smaller dark beast to fall from the air and used its front claws to ferociously smack it. Before the dark beast was even able to land, its bones were smashed to fragments. The objective has arrived. Go! Hurry up and go! Wei Er's eyes turned ferocious as he commanded the dark beast behind him. The other three gray-cloaked people all issued commands to the dark beasts they controlled. They originally thought their operation this time had failed. Who would have thought the objective would still come to deliver his head despite seeing the circumstances here? It was a pleasant surprise. Outside the iron door, Mo Fan stood in front of the heavily wounded Zhang Lulu, staring daggers at the black dark beasts charging over. Zhang Lulu was breathing heavily. Seeing at least 15 dark beasts charging over caused her to nearly faint. To a magician who did not have any ability to defend themselves, being assaulted by a group was their biggest taboo. Under a group attack, magicians generally could not cast their spells. Zhang Lulu began to despair. It seemed she was still going to die in this place. Chapter 222 Qinjun, Thunderbolt, Yaksha. BZZT. Lightning emerged around Mo Fan, arcs of electricity spiraling around his body. A beautiful star path emerged beneath Mo Fan's feet. Zhang Lulu watched Mo Fan draw the star path, astonished to realize his control of lightning was much better than Xu Jiaoting's. Whether it was control of the star path or interlinking the star atlas, it all went smoothly. There were no pauses in the middle. Another thunderbolt? So what if it's intermediate level magic? At most, it can kill a single dark beast. With the amount of people we have, you can forget about killing all of us, even if you used up your mana. Wei San was acting savagely. When he saw Mo Fan use the exact same magic as Xu Jiaoting had before, he began to ridicule him. The lightning element was indeed impressive. The might of the intermediate level was very hard to defend against. However, they were from the Black Vatican, and they could command from 1 to 5 dark beasts each. A thunderbolt could at most kill one. Even if its power was excessive, it was still useless. Mo Fan heard the ridicule coming from the disciple of Black Vatican. The corner of his mouth curved up into a cruel smile. This dog-like thing was really not your normal naive fool. Did he really think that an intermediate magic spell only had a single form? Thunderbolt. He pointed toward the sky, and a thundercloud quickly emerged in the pitch-black sky. The light flashed as it fell down at an astonishing speed. A thick purple lightning bolt split open the skies, its body brimming with destructive powers racing down. Even the air was being scorched. Mo Fan took control of the thunderbolt. When it was halfway down, he yelled out the chant of the spell once more. Thunderbolt, Yaksha! Halfway down, the purple lightning began to split apart and forked out into several lightning branches. Cross thunderbolt. There was a total of 5 branches coming down out of the cross thunderbolt. Its power didn't seem to have decreased as it struck the 5 dark beasts in the very front. The 5 dark beasts were originally running over fiercely. However, the very moment they were hit by the branches of thunderbolt, they were directly turned into pieces of flesh. The blood droplets were very thin, blood mixed with flesh. They were thoroughly electrocuted, their heads had been instantly turned into ashes, and their flesh blasted apart. Thunderbolt, Yaksha was extremely fast and cruel. In a flash, the 5 dark beasts were turned into scraps. The only thing that remained was the blood steaming on the ground. The bright flash made it hard for Zhang Lulu to open her eyes. When she was able to see everything clearly, she discovered that the 5 dark beasts had turned into steaming puddles after being hit by the thunderbolt. This was the second level of intermediate lightning magic. Mo Fan had actually cultivated all the way to the second level of the intermediate lightning realm. He had instantly killed a third of the 15 dark beasts. The Wei Yi who had a ridiculing attitude before had suddenly turned stiff. Their objective was much stronger than the lightning elemental kid from before. Whether it was the lightning star Atlas's formation speed, or the might of his lightning spells, they were all on a completely different level. Hurry up and go. Take the opportunity while his magic is down. Wei Er commanded furiously. The dark beasts didn't dare to even hesitate. They all continued to charge toward Mo Fan. These dark beasts had always been the most optimal cannon fodder for the Black Vatican. Even if all of them were to die, the disciples of the Black Vatican wouldn't care as long as they accomplished their mission. Facing the remaining 10 dark beasts, Mo Fan was not scared in the slightest. There was lightning flashing within his palm. The lightning strike spells were extremely simple for him right now. They didn't even see him make a movement to use the spell. Fwish! Sharp claws flashed by, practically streaking across Mo Fan's throat. This attack was extremely dreadful. If the artery in his throat was sliced, he would definitely die. Mo Fan had already seen this extremely quick dark beast, and took a small step to the side. The moonlight was being dimmed by a cloud. It formed into 2 gloomy paths. Mo Fan was just standing by one of the gloomy paths. When the dark beast made its move, Mo Fan had sank into the boundaries of the shadows. The second dark beast charged toward the darkness and hit the air. It was extremely furious as it kept looking for Mo Fan's shadow everywhere. However, it did not know that Mo Fan had already moved 10 meters away, to another dark area. Qinjun, lightning strike, wrath shock. This time, it was no longer a purple lightning. Within the purple of the lightning strike were some darker colors. The beautiful purple lightning had turned into an indigo current. BZZZT. The lightning strike seemed to be far from as strong as thunderbolt, but coupled with the dark energy, it was extremely ferocious. Originally, lightning strike was used to whip and paralyze. Adding on the dark force, it caused the surrounding air to tremble and form into a complete vibration. This lightning strike, wrath shock, lashed onto the body of the quickest dark beast. The second the dark beast came in contact with the lightning, it had no way to move. A jolting pressure effect came along with the lightning strike as it shocked the dark beast multiple times. It was like a thick indigo iron chain had slammed down heavily. The dark beast's body was instantly covered in a series of scars. Once the lightning strike completely whipped over it, the dark beast was turned into mincemeat. The only smell was the fresh tang of ozone from the aftershock. This dark beast had been turned into mincemeat only 20 meters away from Zhang Lulu. The atmosphere was still trembling a little, and Zhang Lulu's heart was unable to calm down. Was this still primary lightning magic, a lightning strike? A lightning strike, even a third level one, could at most cause some damage to a dark beast. People had to take the opportunity when they were paralyzed to use another magic to inflict serious damage on them. However, the lightning strike used by Mo Fan was different from that used by the other lightning students, including Xu Jiaoting. His lightning was indigo. His lightning carried a power that shook even the air. It was an incredibly strong pressure. Originally, it was just some normal lightning strike, but it had turned into some heavy, chain-like thing that crushed the dark beast's body, killing it just like that. Qinjun, when he used his lightning strike, he did say that. Could it be that his lightning is no longer the common grade? Strong. This great demon that once received the worst reputation in a stroke at the rookie competition was actually this powerful. Those dreadful servant-class magical beasts were just like children in his eyes. He only needed to use primary magic to completely whip them to death. Chinjun. While John Lulu's heart was billowing, Mo Fan once again drew a lightning star atlas. This star atlas's speed was relatively fast, and didn't seem to have been affected by the continuous assault of the numerous dark beasts. An ominous noise was heard once more, as this time Mo Fan used his spirit-grade lightning seed on his intermediate lightning magic. Primary magic with his Chinjun lightning seed could already kill a dark beast. Then what about an even stronger intermediate magic? Coupled with the effects of Chinjun, what kind of might would that be? Chinjun, Thunderbolt, Yaksha. An indigo-hued nebula began to condense. The indigo bolt struck down without pause. When it reached halfway down, it split into several lightning branches equally strong. From a place not too far away, the slowly flowing Wangpu River reflected this incredible destructive dance. That was an indigo cross lightning, thick, irascible, and carrying a strong aura of death. Boom! Chapter 223. Not a single one remains. The trembling carried through the air. When the lightning Yaksha forked into 5 branches and landed, it did not just hit its 5 objectives. In the areas where the Thunderbolt Yaksha landed arose a powerful pressure. Whether it was those who were directly hit by the Thunderbolt Yaksha or those who were standing near the area of Chinjun's domain, the little dark beasts had no way to survive. The difference in the former and latter was that the former was turned into countless droplets of blood steam. The latter was merely directly turned into minced meat. Who knows which one suffered more pain before they died? His Chinjun Thunderbolt Yaksha's might was much greater than that of a common grade lightning seed. The remaining dark beasts seemed to have all died from the explosion of the intermediate lightning magic. One of them seemed to have good luck. Only its legs had been completely shattered. Unfortunately for it, it just happened to get stomped on by the spirit wolf. The spirit wolf slowly bit this dark beast to death. Perhaps this dark beast that was being chewed on was regretting why it didn't just get killed along with its group. Instead, it was tormented for half a minute for no particular reason except a spirit wolf's curiosity. In just a moment, all of the dark beasts had been completely cleaned out. Just a while ago, Mo Fan was the prey of these people. However, he had immediately turned into a murderous lightning death god. One had to know that it wouldn't be much of a problem for these dark beasts to deal with 2 or 3 intermediate magicians. They were crafty, fast, and they knew how to attack as a team. Although intermediate magicians were indeed impressive, they still couldn't deal with a group of these kind of creatures attacking them from all directions. After these dark beasts had been turned into blood and meat chunks, the 4 disciples of the Black Vatican realized that the objective they were supposed to catch was not a simple sheep, he was a savage tiger. Their strengths were on a completely different level. This was completely different from the information given to them from the student concealed within the school. Retreat. Wei San's face had already turned pale. He turned around and started to run. Split up. Wei Er could still be considered relatively calm as he advised his 3 companions. The 4 of them knew they couldn't handle Mo Fan, and so they began to run in 4 different directions. Mo Fan swept across them with his gaze. Beneath his feet was an intertwining star path that wasn't very clear nor bright. You go pursue that one. Mo Fan pointed at the gray person that was running toward the riverbank as he spoke to the spirit wolf. The spirit wolf immediately began to chase in the direction Mo Fan was pointing in. The spirit wolf didn't even need to use its burst speed. The spirit wolf thought there was no way he could not outrun a slow human with 2 legs with his own 4 legs. How about biting off a leg once I've caught up and then see how much further he can run? Mo Fan wasn't in a hurry to pursue them. That was because the shadow beneath his foot had turned into a mysterious star atlas, a strange dark aura beginning to grow from it. Go! As Mo Fan pushed out with his hand, a gigantic shadow needle noiselessly began to fly out from the center of his chest. He couldn't see this shadow energy flying in the air, however. In the reflections in the windows in the factory, he could make out from the safety lamps that there was something sharp flying over. In the next second, Wei Si, who was in the middle of running, came to an abrupt stop. His running movement and his inability to move an inch of his body formed an extremely strange posture. It looked extremely odd. Wei Si's complexion turned pale as he looked back. He suddenly realized that the shadow beneath his body had a gigantic spike sticking through it like a sword. Following this, a shadowy gas began to emerge from the surroundings of his body, and this dark mist began to circle around him. It caused his restrictions to become even tighter, as if even his consciousness had received an attack. Everyone must die. Mo Fan didn't even look at the person whose shadow was being controlled before his body sank into the shadows. A shadow began to quickly move through the pitch-black factory. A few seconds later, the shadows emerged in front of the calmest disciple of Black Vatican. Wei Er ran with his life at stake. Originally, he wanted to turn around to see whether that ferocious death god was chasing him or not, and instead, he nearly crashed into the scary death god. Fire burst, burning bones. A ball of flames suddenly condensed in his palm. Mo Fan threw it right into the front of Wei Er's chest from a close distance. The flames touched Wei Er and quickly covered his body. Wei Er's clothes were completely burned away. While it was burning his flesh, increasingly more dreadful flames began to invade the inside of his body. Even his bones that shouldn't be burned were turned into ashes. The flames of burning bones burned both the inside and the outside. If Mo Fan was specifically controlling the temperature, he could increase the heat of the flames by a lot. If he was lenient toward those from the Black Vatican, then he'd be disrespecting those who had died by their hands. Mo Fan turned around as he ignored the screams coming from the burning Wei Er behind him. His eyes fixed on Wei Wu, who took this opportunity to run away. This Wei Wu ran pretty fast. He was a wind magician. Mo Fan could see a long wind tunnel behind him as he fled for his life. Whoosh! Fierce flames began to scuttle forth from beneath Mo Fan's feet again. Mo Fan's entire person looked like a fiery demon. Although there was an incredibly hot fire engulfing his whole body, he still seemed so calm. Wei Wu ran with his life at stake. No one knew that while he was a Wind student at Pearl Institute, he had always been a loyal follower of the Black Vatican. Although he could not receive resources, he had always hoped to receive more power. The Black Vatican was able to give him even more power. Although he had run pretty far, Wei Wu still had some lingering fear. He already knew of the great strength Mo Fan possessed during the rookie competition, but who knew that was only the tip of the iceberg? He didn't understand how a person who already had a summoning and lightning element would also have shadow abilities. This information had to be quickly given to the Great Deacon. Suddenly, he heard a voice rising ominously behind him. Fiery flames, exploding heavens. Wei Wu turned around. Eye-piercing red flames. He could only see the furious red flames that were coming for him. The flames were extremely large, in the form of a gigantic fist raging out from the shabby factory. Even though he was so far from it, the power of the fist of flames did not diminish at all. Wei Wu wanted to use his wind trail to change direction. The heat wave caused his skin to nearly melt while the gigantic fist began to expand in size. Even if he wanted to hide from it, there was no way he could. When the powerful flames exploded, Wei Wu's entire being was engulfed. At close range, the fiery fist was able to turn a creature into black powder. The temperature of the flames after a distance was not as high. However, it was still very much capable of turning a primary magician into a black carcass. Wei Wu fell to the ground with flames raging around his body, his face charred beyond recognition and stamped with an expression of disbelief. What he would never understand was how this intermediate magician could actually possess magic from 4 different elements. Chapter 224 Killing Someone in Your Spare Time. I beg of you, please let me go. I was forced to do this. While he was stuck with the giant shadow spike, Wei Si couldn't help but kneel down before Mo Fan and beg for his pathetic life. 4 elements. It really was 4 elements. This objective had a total of 4 elemental magics. The Great Deacon did tell them that this objective was an innate dual element. If he used common sense, then the other party would awaken 1 more element when they reached the intermediate level. He should only have 3 elements. However, 4 elements. How could there be trust between humans now? Mo Fan wouldn't talk smack with these domesticated slaves. He glanced at the spirit wolf, whose jaws still showed fresh blood, and said indifferently, "Here's your midnight snack." The spirit wolf hadn't had its fill yet, and it knew that this follower of the Black Vatican was currently being controlled by the giant shadow spike, and unable to make a move. It was just thinking about cleaning its teeth before, but then it realized that it would need to clean them again. Thus, it decided to first rip its meal apart and then slowly eat it. Dark beasts were too smelly, and were extremely hard to swallow. However, the flavor of the followers of the Black Vatican wasn't bad. Quadruple A. The miserable final cry of the last follower of the Black Vatican reverberated through the factory. Mo Fan had already walked out of the factory toward Zhang Lulu, who was still bleeding. Mo Fan had seen Zhang Lulu before. She was the girlfriend of Xu Jiaoting. However, the current Zhang Lulu had already fainted. Originally, he wanted to ask her to keep the secret of his 4 elements secret. However, it was clear that she already passed out by the time he had used the fire element. Fortunately, Mo Fan always carried around some blood medicine. Although these blood medicines could not heal her, they could at least keep her alive. First, he had to stop the bleeding. Mo Fan picked up Zhang Lulu and put her on the back of the spirit wolf that had just finished his midnight snack. "We can head back," Mo Fan said to the spirit wolf. The spirit wolf spat out a bone, feeling very satisfied, before he carried Mo Fan and Zhang Lulu back toward the city. The city had regulations against summoned beasts. When Mo Fan arrived at a place where there were people, he had to take a taxi. Fortunately, Zhang Lulu's life was no longer in danger, or else she would definitely have died from bleeding. The liquid from a dark beast's claw prevented blood from clotting. After taking Zhang Lulu to the closest hospital and paying a considerable amount for the hospital fee, a healing magician finally arrived and healed her. Zhang Lulu had lost a lot of blood, and wouldn't wake up in a little while. Mo Fan knew that the hospital was just as safe as the school, and so he left behind a contact number before he returned back to his apartment. "Sister Mew, where do you think that shadow beast is hiding? We still have nothing on it, it's so troublesome." I-Tutu's voice was audible from outside the door. Mo Fan opened the door and walked in. He didn't talk to the 2 girls, as he had too much on his mind. With a heavy heart, he walked up to his room. The 2 girls stopped their discussion for a while. After Mo Fan got to the 2nd floor and closed the door to his own room, the 2 finally glanced at one another. "Why didn't you say anything? Are you against his personality?" "And he didn't even peek at Sister Mu's thighs this time," I-Tutu muttered. "What nonsense are you saying?" Mu Nujiao was a bit embarrassed. "Why did this little brat keep running her mouth off like that? Didn't you see that there was some tawny color on his clothes?" "It seemed to be dried blood," I-Tutu noted. Mu Nujiao didn't say a word. Based on the hint from before, he must have experienced a fight. The big bloodstain was relatively eye-catching. Just where did this guy go, and why was he covered in so much blood? Could it be that this great demon likes to kill people in his spare time? That blood clearly wasn't his. I-Tutu said. Mu Nujiao didn't want to randomly guess. However, she began to think about it. In a long alley, the few lamps seemed to be only able to illuminate the surrounding 10 meters. On the green stone walls were a few wooden doors of the old style. Suddenly, one of the doors slowly opened, followed by a stinky creature crawling along on 4 limbs quickly charging in. It seemed to be carrying a living person, as well. After this, a gray-cloaked man walked inside. Before he entered, he made sure to check the alley to make sure no one was following him. Inside the place was an old courtyard. There were trees there that no longer had any leaves on them. The courtyard was very messy. No one had cleaned the place. Standing on the staircase that led toward the old house was a man wearing half a mask. In his hand was something similar to a whip he used to lash the couple of disobedient dark beasts at his side, their flesh already lacerated from the punishment. "Great Deacon, our plan was ruined by this kid," Wei Yi said. "Xu Jiaoting? HMPH. The man with half a mask looked at Xu Jiaoting, who was covered in dirt. The other half of his face that seemed fine let out a cold, cruel smile. Xu Jiaoting was weak and had no strength remaining. However, he was able to recognize just who this strange person was. After looking carefully, Xu Jiaoting spat with incredible anger. "It's you." Bo City was only so big. Those who were around the same age while being known as extraordinary naturally knew of one another. Yuang knew Xu Jiaoting, and Xu Jiaoting definitely recognized Yuang. However, Xu Jiaoting had never imagined that the person Mu Zhouyan had considered his successor was actually someone from the Black Vatican. It seemed like this person was definitely one of the ringleaders behind the disaster of Bo City. So it was an old acquaintance. "I'll have to give you some special treatments," Yuang said with a smile. "You half-faced monster, you must not know how to die." Xu Jiaoting cursed him. Yuang's smile immediately came to a stop. His entire being began to sink into a gloomy state. After his face was ruined, the one thing Yuang hated was to hear someone mentioning it. The places that he went to nowadays were not even allowed to have a mirror. I've told you before, I will give you a special treatment. Not a single person who goes against the Black Vatican will have a good life, Yuang said coldly. Great Deacon, Wei Wu, Wei Si, Wei San, and Wei Er seems to have died, Wei Yi whispered as his face suddenly turned pale. Was it the people from the magic court? Yuang's face immediately changed. It was the objective that came soon after. He even saved the girl that came along with this kid, Wei Yi said. When Xu Jiaoting heard this, he couldn't help but sigh in relief. As long as Zhang Lulu was fine, he was really worried about her ending up in the hands of these insane people. The whip in Yuang's hand immediately lashed toward Xu Jiaoting's face. It was clear that Yuang was extremely angry about losing 4 underlings in an instant. You are happy about the girl who survived, aren't you? Yuang walked over in front of Xu Jiaoting. The whip in his hand lashed out mercilessly once again as he said ferociously, I'll let the 2 of you regret being alive in this world. After saying that, Yuang directly dragged the bloody Xu Jiaoting inside the old house. When Wei Yi saw Yuang once again drag a living person into the house, his whole body couldn't help but shudder. In the Black Vatican, some people who had offended others or broken the rules would endure a pain worse than dying, especially when they ended up in the hands of this great deacon whose heart was increasingly twisted.